This time on PlayStation Rumble, we chase astronauts and run from weird sea creatures as we piece together the vanishing of Ethan Carter. Hi, my name is Jamie, and I am joined, as always, by Tony.
Yo.
And Joshua.
What's good?
This episode, we're going to be discussing The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Next episode, we are going to be playing Mirror's Edge. So there's a heads up warning if you want to play along with that. That's releasing on the 29th of April. If you want to skip straight to the discussion, that will be in the show notes. Gentlemen, it's been a couple of weeks since we last met. How have your weeks been?
It's been all right. Still trying to become Elden Lord.
Are you getting... It seems to be like there was a great love for Elden Ring. It was like instantly everyone was like, where has this game been in my life? Now I'm seeing a lot of people get towards the end game and going, you know, they're starting to nitpick a little bit more, maybe feeling that fatigue of the, you know, just the length and the scope of this game. Are you still feeling as positive towards it as you were before?
Oh, absolutely. I've been playing since launch. And I've just been taking my time with it. Like, I'll take, if I feel like I'm getting fatigued or bored, I'll just stop playing it for a couple of days and focus on something else. And, you know, I'm just chugging along. I'm towards the end game now, kind of. I'm headed towards the end. So I hopefully by next episode, I will scream from the hilltops, I am Elden Lord. But as of right now, I'm making progress. Getting a little frustrated at certain parts, but, you know...
What's your build? What did you go for in the end?
I started as a bandit, but now I'm just strength and dexterity build.
That means nothing to me, but it sounds lovely.
Anyone who's played it knows what he means.
Which is nearly everyone.
I'll chime in and I'll say that unlike Tony, I did become Elden Lord. And... I am the proud owner of the platinum for Elden Ring.
Very nice.
What is? I guess the platinum's not that bad because I see a lot of people saying on Twitter, platinum it.
Oh, absolutely. It's not. I platinumed the Demon Souls remake, and that one minimum required like 3 playthroughs. So you had to do base playthrough, new game +1, new game +2. So I did that and got the platinum for that. But Elden Ring...
Well, I mean, I'm going to jump into that when I'm finally done with Elden Ring.
Good luck, Tony. If you need help from an old master, you let me know.
And if you need help from a noob, I'm here.
I played Demon Souls on the PS3, so I didn't beat it. But, you know, I'm not unfamiliar with Demon Souls or the series in general. So,
but I will say, yeah, Elden Ring's platinum is... definitely the easiest From Software platinum they've ever released. At least for PlayStation, you only have to beat the game once. It's beat the game once, get a bunch of legendary stuff, beat all the bosses.
Oh, you should beat all the lords, so
all the unique bosses, yeah, you have to beat those. So all the shard bearers, any dungeon, obviously you'd have to beat the bosses at those. So
I'm not looking forward to finding out what's her name. Is it the girl Millennia? I think her name is.
Dude,
I'm not looking forward to her.
What were they smoking when they made that character? So Jamie, since you haven't played Elden Ring, and spoiler warning for those of you listening, and you want to avoid any spoilers in Elden Ring. There's this boss called Millennia, and she was in the trailer. She looks kind of like a Valkyrie. And she wields a sword, and so she's pretty quick. She strikes a few times. She's got pretty nasty combos. No big deal. I can deal with that. But there are 3 catches. One of them is anytime she hits you, she heals.
Ooh.
And so, like, if she takes you for a combo and does 5 hits, she heals for every single one of those hits, and it's not a small amount.
Oh, I didn't know. I knew she healed like halfway through. By the way, Jamie, she's optional. So when you do play it, you don't have to fight her.
Do you know what? All of Elden Ring's optional. Turns out.
We're not done. We're not done. Catch 2 is that she has 2 phases. So after you're done banging your guts against the wall for 5 hours beating the first phase, there's a second phase, and she can give you Scarlet Rot. Catch number 3 is there's one attack that she does that is easily the hardest attack to avoid FromSoft has ever made. If you get hit by it, it practically kills you. It's almost impossible to learn and dodge effectively. I myself never learned how to properly deal with it. It is that BS of an attack.
Don't worry, Jamie. You don't have to. A lot of these options. You only have to fight. Only have to fight 2 of the main bosses, and then you can avoid.
I
the rest
literally don't
of
have to fight any Elden Ring boss.
No, you're playing it, Jamie.
If I don't want,
it's happening. I want you to. I'm
going to play Elden Ring, but I'm not really into the combat. Can I just turn off all encounters? That would be fun.
I had just fought. What's his name? Morgat, and I was expecting like a big grueling battle, and he wasn't aggressive.
He's just Margit, but more.
Even Margit, like he just I don't know. Maybe the AI didn't get aggro on me. And I fought on Radia?
Radon. That fight was awesome.
I went there a little late, so I was a little over leveled, but even then it was just like it wasn't a big deal. Like he didn't really do anything. He did he fell from the sky, which was cool, but I was looking forward to getting my ass kicked. Last patch, they kind of nerfed him, and then in recent patch, they unnerfed him,
and then they buffed him again.
And it wasn't a thing. Like I was kind of disappointed. Like I guess I need to go there like a lot lower. I was a little over leveled, like not by much.
Did you use the summons for the fight, or did you just go in by yourself?
Oh, I thought you had to use the summons because they made it a big thing. Oh well.
Oh yeah. Well, the summons are optional, but
I mean, I
used them because it was awesome. And then he does the nuke and kills them all. It's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, apparently you can lure him to like the ocean and he'll nuke right into the ocean. But I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to cheese him.
Classic cheese strats.
Tony, you said back there, I was looking forward to getting my ass kicked. Now, is that a thing with Souls players that they enjoy kind of being like? Obviously, there is the level of achievement for doing these incredibly hard or strategic bosses. Is there a little sort of not S&M, but you kind of want to be thrown around a little bit before you get to your end result?
You're expecting a challenge, and there's certain bosses that have you're expecting it from like Millennia. You're expecting her to be tough because you hear about her. Another one that I heard was, could be rather difficult. And then I was waiting for this epic fight that I didn't receive. So, I mean, you go in expecting it to be tough. Like, it's not overbearingly tough.
I would say, yeah, there's definitely a part where you want the game to be challenging because even though there are moments in their bosses that are harder than others, the victory over a particularly scum boss feels way better. There's this euphoria that you get when you finally make them fall down. You're like, you piece of garbage. I own you now. And it's just the difficult bosses and getting your butt handed to you is definitely, it sucks in the moment. But once you overcome that, the high that you get at the end of it is just addicting.
But I mean, there's some bosses that are harder than others. Like,
sure,
the main Millennia, like he's talking about, she's pretty brutal from what I understand. Even in all the Souls games, there's particular bosses that most people will probably just avoid, and they're usually optional. You don't have to fight them; just move on. But there's definitely bosses that are challenge, and there's definitely some that feel like bullshit. Sometimes there's a little bit of luck. Like sometimes I fought a few bosses that were whooping my ass 10, 20 times. And then the 21st time, they just kind of just stood there and let me kill them. It's a little bit of luck sometimes. But, Jamie, you should play it. I want you to play it.
I mean, the reason I said I don't think Cuphead would have been as successful as it is if it wasn't as challenging as it is. And
absolutely,
it feels like you're getting from Souls games what I get from a very trying platformer. Good for you guys, and good for the internet because they really love it, and the internet really needs a break. It's had a really hard 20 years, and I recently bought. Look, everyone's buying PS5s. Apparently, they're in stock. Once in a while.
They're a lot more easily to get, I think, now than ever.
But did I go that route? No, I didn't. I got myself a PlayStation VR. Tony, I know you don't have...
baby, let's go.
Yes, at last.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
I'm posting a picture of it on the box it came, jealous. Boys, it finally came. How many PlayStation PS5 pictures I've seen like in delivery boxes going today, boys, on stream.
Yeah, that's why I didn't. I was going to do that on Twitter. I was like, Twitter's had enough of this. I'm not doing that.
So yeah, T, I know you don't have it. Joshua, I think you do have a PlayStation VR?
I do not have a PlayStation VR.
Okay. I'm mistaken then. A few things really strike me about PlayStation VR. First thing is that it feels like they knew when did VR come out? Like 2016, I think.
Like the halfway point of the PS4. So I think 2016.
October 2016.
It really makes me feel like they knew what the PS5 color scheme was going to be in 2016 because this thing is two-tone white and black, white on the outside, black in the middle. I was like, oh, that looks very familiar.
The only thing that dissuades me is that when it first came out, the PSVR was a really good value proposition because VR was crazy expensive, and then you had to have a PC to run it, and they're like, oh, hey, this is $400 that it plugs into your PS4. Dude, that's awesome. Now you can get an Oculus Quest for $100 less, and it's the whole thing, which is insane. So, would it be cool? Sure. Would I use it? Probably not.
Well, this is the thing. I feel like I specifically waited because if you bought a PSVR in 2016, you have paid the price of admission for like the early tech and like games have come out at treacle, basically. It's not had, they continue supporting it, unlike other things like the Vita, despite it not selling particularly better than the Vita. But it's slow. It is a new technology, and buying it now is probably the best value you're ever going to get for it because you will have like 20 solid games that you go, this can justify the price of a miss.
How much did you end up getting it for?
Hold up, guys. Getting a Beat Saber machine. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I mean, Beat Saber alone is...
Beat Saber's pretty dope.
Beat Saber's awesome. Yeah, Beat Saber's awesome.
Yeah, my friend's daughter's Oculus.
70 British pounds is the answer to
That's
your
not
question,
bad.
Tony. Yeah, so that's what, $90, $95, something like that. That's just...
Wait, that's what you paid for that?
Yeah, it was secondhand.
Wow,
it wasn't firsthand.
I still.
Yeah, it's really
awesome.
good, yeah.
There's a point where Walmart was clearing them out like a couple of years ago for like brand new $99, and I could not find one.
At least in the UK, it's never really dropped too much. I think you can get one new for like $250, something like that, $200, maybe at a push. But that was just the headset alone. The camera is quite, like, you can't really buy the camera separate, but that was like another £30. So I spent probably about $100 all in. I just went out to buy some games. I had some birthday money.
I was gonna say, what are you playing on your VR, Jamie?
He's playing Resident Evil 7.
Yeah, because I hate myself.
Too scary for poor Jamie.
I can't play that in
2D.
flat. what we VR users call flat games.
Oh yeah, you VR purists.
Whatever.
Mingling with us common folks on 2D.
Joshua, we have PS5, so
That's true. I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh at you in 4K, James.
So I won't hear you because I'll be completely consumed by the Matrix. There are a lot of games I want to play. The first game I got was Astrobots Rescue Mission. And look, everyone said this is going to be a really good game. I mean, it's PlayStation exclusive, designed for the hardware. I knew it was going to be good. I knew it was a platformer that kind of used you as the player as like part of the action. So you're going like any sort of 3D platformer, maybe a bit more, weirdly enough for VR, a bit more corridor platforming. Like sort of Crash Bandicoot levels where you're sort of going away from the screen. I knew it was going to be good. It is absolutely astounding. It is upsetting that not everyone who owns a PlayStation gets to buy this game. It really has like a huge... I know people said this about the demo, the PS5 demo, Astrobot, but it really does have that Nintendo like feel and quality like throughout the whole game. And that's in like a lot of things. That's in performance, like visuals, level design. It's just so well done. I mean, like RIP, is it Japan Studios? It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like so creative and like fun. I think what Nintendo does so well is it just sells you fun. Nintendo just like package fun in a box and they like sell it to you for an extortionate rate, but they've always been good at just making very fun games, and this is just like really fun and really high quality. The other thing I would compare it to Nintendo wise is I think it's kind of like the Mario 64 of VR. Once in a while, like a game comes along, and it's usually like a Nintendo game often, but not always, where like they just go, we're going to set the definition for what this sort of thing. I mean, Mario really set the definition, like early Mario's, of what like a left to right 2D platformer was going to be, and it didn't create a lot of those tropes, but it did stabilize them and put a lot of quality onto them. 64 went, this is now how we're going to do 3D games. Everyone like fucking pay attention. This is what's going to happen. And I think this is kind of it for VR. It's just like they're so innovative with so much of their level design. There are parts where you're going through, and there might be a wall there. They're very good at leveling. So you're always like going up and down as you're sort of going forward. And there might be a wall on your left as you're passing through. You follow the character, but you might not be able to see. You'll have to like literally turn your head to look around into the scope. Your controller is like a part of the game. So like you pull it on this tech box and it gives you like a
grappling hook.
Yeah, your controller like becomes a grappling hook.
Every game honestly should have a grappling hook.
Every game should, and this one has such a good implementation of it. Like your grappling hook can either like aim to push things down like bits of the environment so your bot can get further on, or you can have the grappling hook attached to something and then your little bot can like jump on it, and like if you throw up your controller, the physics of it, he's going to jump up into the air. It is so good. I am like such a miserable bastard. And I cannot, like, my grin is just like ear to ear when I'm playing this game. Just really good.
I was going to say, speaking of games that make you feel insurmountable joy, we were talking about Nintendo, and this might be heresy on the podcast, but I've been playing my Switch lately, and I've been playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I moved on to that after I beat Elden Ring.
Different pace?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, you know what they say. Kirby games are really hard when you pluck out one of your eyes and cut off one of your hands and tie your other hand behind your back. It's actually pretty hard when you do that.
Yeah.
But it's a great game. If either of you have Switches, I definitely recommend it. This is the first Kirby game in 3D, and HAL Laboratory did a great job with it. The level of detail, the level design, the copy abilities, just they're firing on all cylinders for it. And as a lifelong Kirby fan, I could not be happier with the game as it is.
I think I played some of the games, some like the Game Boy Advance ones. I wouldn't mind checking the new one out. I like Kirby. It seems different enough. And plus, always like the hard stuff usually comes after you beat the game anyway. So
the post game in Kirby games can ramp up pretty hard.
Does the new one have a post game? You know?
Yes, and the post game this time around is actually integrated within the story. Mm-hmm. So you like beat the game, you get the credits, but there are loose ends left. So you're very much encouraged to just keep going.
Is it harder?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
I'm looking for. I'll probably check it out eventually. I have so many.
Again, if it's not hard enough, cut off one of your hands, pluck out one of your eyes. Put a blindfold on, get your little brother to play, you know.
I mean, sometimes you need a little, like, you know, lightheartedness, like the Astrobots game on PS5. That was fairly easy, but it was still nice to play.
Yeah, it's just, really well designed. Same thing with Kirby.
After the grueling world of Elden Ring, sometimes you just want to, you know, give some robots high fives.
Just prepare your eyes. Just prepare, well, not necessarily your eyes, but prepare yourself mentally for some of the end game bosses in Kirby games, because they look like actual demon spawn.
Really?
That came from Satan himself.
Oh, wow.
This is a constant trend in Kirby games and has been since Kirby's Adventure on the NES. The final bosses are horrifying, and they're just like the scariest things. So, be prepared.
Joshua, you said you completed Kirby 100%, and also you said you platinum Elden Ring.
I haven't beat Forgotten Land 100% yet.
But you platinum Elden Ring. Are you
yes, sir.
A platinum hunter? Are you a trophy hunter? Or is it...
I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. If I'm playing a game and I really like it, then I'll go for the platinum. Or if the platinum is fairly easy to do, then I'll do it. But there are certain games that I want platinum. Like, for example, I just beat Final Fantasy IX as well. I replayed that. But the trophy list for PlayStation on that was created by a madman who wishes pain, misery, and torture on the entire planet. I refused. I beat the game and I ended up with like 14% of all trophies.
That's so discouraging.
Like, that is crazy. I'm not getting that platinum. But so it's not really I just get platinum because I want to. It's more if I like a game enough that I can just go and get to platinum, then sure. But if a game's not fun, or if the platinum is too grindy, then I just wash my hands of it. I'll beat it. I can live with that.
How many platinums have we got?
21.
Okay.
Right now, I think.
I knew I was going to lose this one before I asked that question, Tony.
I have 2.
Hey, I've got 2. Yeah. Working on that third.
The only one that I felt like really, really getting was Infamous 2, because I fucking loved Infamous 2.
Okay.
And I got Astroworld because it's just such an easy platinum.
It's like a 4-hour platinum.
Yeah, and plus, like, I was enjoying the game so much, I wanted to see everything. It's a love letter to Sony fans. It was such a nostalgia trip, just seeing everything, seeing all the, because you collect items and you see all the old paraphernalia in the PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4 era. It's a trip. It's a fun game.
Gentlemen, speaking of 4-hour games, I think it's time to get into the game proper. Should we talk about Vanishing of Ethan Carter? The Vanishing of Ethan Carter was developed and published by the Astronauts in 2014 and is a narrative puzzle adventure game where you control a detective looking for clues about a boy named Ethan Carter. It is also a self-described narrative experience that does not hold your hand.
I mean, I really wanted to talk about that.
They go out of their way to tell you that.
I felt a bit passive-aggressive how at the beginning, this game starts off literally going...
I was like, oh, shots fired.
Yeah, it starts off by saying, narrative game. This is a narrative experience which does not hold your hand like all the other games you've played, you Wally.
I mean, I respect that, but they got some balls.
No, because at the time, the walking simulator was very popular, and
Well, you have Firewatch.
This was before Firewatch, wasn't it? I think this is. So this came out in 2014. So Gone Home would have just come out. Well, would have come out of 2013, 2010, one of those dates.
Something like that.
Yeah, roughly in that ballpark. And that was like, I think that exploded the walking sim.
Yeah.
But the developers, the Astronauts, broke off from People Can Fly. I think they were the co-founders of People Can Fly, but they broke off when that got sold by Epic. But People Can Fly used to do first-person shooters. They did Painkiller, and they supported on Gears of War. So, I mean, this is a first-person game, but quite a sort of change in pace to what they used to be doing. And the next game is going to be a first-person shooter as well. So I thought that was quite interesting because this feels very much like a sort of small, passionate sort of indie team.
I was going to say the interesting thing about People Can Fly is that their most recent game was Outriders. So I think the Astronauts probably made the right call there. I mean, it's in the bargain bin at Walmart. The numbers speak for themselves. Yeah,
and this has like a reputation among walking sims. You picked this game, Joshua, for the podcast. So what was your reasoning behind electing it? And what was your sort of personal experience before the podcast?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One is it was on PlayStation Now, and I have it, so I didn't have to buy a game. Is reason number one.
A personal
reason. Number two is it was one of those games. I had it in my library, and I'd heard things about it here and there, and I'm like, that the title alone sounds kind of interesting, but you never quite know what the game is looking outside in. So I was always pretty curious what it was like. So, it's probably a shorter game. We could play it pretty easily. So let's just give it a shot.
Yeah, and that's my exact feeling behind before I played What Remains of Edith Finch. It has a lot of these walking sims do have those sort of everybody's gone to the raptures, got like these sort of quite long literature kind of titles with like sort of weird names in them. Tony, had you played the game? Had you heard of the game before coming to this episode?
I've heard of it, and I thought it was that other game, Eden Finch, because they're both similar sounding names.
I don't blame you.
They have book titles in their video games.
Yeah.
And so I knew of it. I knew it was like a quote-unquote walking simulator adventure game. So I had no idea what it was really about besides someone named Ethan Carter going missing.
Have you played many walking sims? Is that something you're interested in?
I mean, I never really played I don't think I've ever really played one, really. Like, I never really played Gone Home or the one about What's Her Face. I forgot her name already.
I played God of War 2018. That's pretty cool.
Shit, I wasn't ready for that.
I had my coffee this morning.
Wow. This was on my periphery. I have played a few walking. I really like walking sims, to be honest. I really like Edith Finch. I really like what Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. This has strong Everybody's Gone to the Rapture vibes. I genuinely thought that this was a game made by the same company, but obviously they'd taken a lot of influence from this game. So happy to play it. Who wants to, and by who, I mean both of you, have a guess at what the Metacritic score for this game is?
80.
I was going to say 80.
You got to go higher or lower, T.
81.
All right. It is 81. Tony, you're unstoppable. You are the Elden Ring master of guessing what the Metacritic score is.
He is the Dark Souls of guessing Metacritic.
The Demon Souls.
I've got a review here, user review. I gave it 1 out of 10. I thought we were going to be fairly...
I don't know where I'm going. 1 out of 10.
I generally thought we'd probably be mixed to... I mean, there were a few of those. I thought we would probably be mixed to positive in this game, so I tried to find a different perspective. The _fun_2 says, a nice soundtrack with a ridiculous history. By the way, my dog could do the game puzzles with his tail. Good graphics doesn't mean a good game. Don't try this. Disparaging.
It's a little harsh.
Well, I agree with his comment about graphics, but good graphics don't make a good game, but I don't know that I agree about his dog could do the puzzles.
Yeah.
Give your dog a controller and they'll eat it. Come on. I tried giving my cat the controller and she just looked at me like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, if his dog's tail can do that, his dog's tail's a lot smarter than I am.
I'd be impressed.
Yeah.
If your dog can do that, man, you should be rich and you should be on television. So stop playing games and get out there.
What is it? The movie with the dog that plays basketball? You know what I'm talking about?
Airbud.
Airbud?
Airbud.
Do you know what? Not enough people talking about Airbud nowadays.
Airbud Rumble. Let's start it.
Airbud Rumble, Every episode we watch one of the Airbud movies.
Airbud. No, we watch only Airbud.
We watch the same Airbud movie again and again and see the layers as they unfold like a fine onion.
You ever try to overanalyze it from a critical film perspective? Because here we go.
Again. And I think I agree. Like the graphics, when I didn't realize this game came out in 2014. The graphics are very good for a 2014 game. I thought it probably came out 2016, 2017. But even today, I would accept that as a game today.
Apart from the character models, I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. I thought that was probably a stylistic choice there.
The scenery definitely, I guess, since it's such a close quarters game, in a sense, it seems bigger than it really is. Mm-hmm. And it looked very nice. And I agree with the reviewer that the music was really good too. Could my dog beat it? I doubt it. I mean, look at him over there.
There's the second bit, just skipping ahead quickly. You go across the first bridge with the sort of tram car thing, and then you go across the second bridge, and the scenery in there has that sort of fairy tale, kind of nearly like fantasy Lord of the Rings, beauty to it. It is really stunning. I don't think it's just the graphics are good. I think the artwork is supposed to evoke this sort of feeling of, I mean, not only kind of an unnerving horror sort of uneasiness, but also these sort of moments of incredible natural beauty, and it does that really, really well.
I do want to say that in genre, it's often described as a horror game.
It is,
and apart from one moment that I can think of, I'm not sure why, because it's not a horror game.
I mean, there's a one when you're talking about in the caverns, right?
Yeah, that was
the jump scare. That was only a jump scare. It was a jump scare. You didn't know the hell?
Yeah, I didn't know. I shit my britches. I had to buy 3
Jamie's
pairs of
like,
breeches just to play this game.
This was so scary. I couldn't go to bed that night.
Yeah, like I
Couldn't even
didn't
beat the game.
I mean, I didn't know what the hell was going on most of the time, so I was just like, "What's going on? Some guy's chasing me now?" Like it was just.
What's going
It was
on was
just-
my mantra as I played this
I
game.
have it written down.
What is happening?
It's in my notes. I have no idea where I am going or what I am doing.
That feels more like a personal diary. Sorry, continue.
No, I said I have no idea where I'm going or what I am doing.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, I follow. So this game, as we said, it starts off going, listen, idiots, we're not going to hold your hand through this. So it's
They
setting,
mean it.
You're setting you up to go, like, you are going to have to explore this world on your own. And then ironically, you start off on a track, in a tunnel, on a track. And then you go, like, just beyond the tunnel, and you can either follow the track or you can listen to what they've just, like, pounded you over the head by saying and explore sort of the forest either side of you. It's set in forest. Now, if you just follow the track, you go to the first big mystery, which is like a rail car thing, which isn't too far down the road. But I got to the bridge just on the cusp of that and thought, hang on a minute, maybe there's something in these here woods. And you like go along and you find loads of traps, and it explains to you basically the premise of the gameplay, which is you're finding clues. And once you've found enough clues and you've pieced everything together, then you'll get a vision of what had happened, maybe a note written as like a story. And the first one is like loads of traps in the woods. And then the story behind that is kind of like dark and eerie. It's not horror, but it's dark and eerie about this guy who used to go off into the woods and like brave all these traps just so he could get sap from trees. He wanted to drink like loads of sap from trees. But the villagers thought that he had incredible wealth hidden in the forests, but he only wanted them to think that so they wouldn't drink his sap, because obviously sap's very sought after as a nourishing drink. Then there's a fire one day and he's protected by the sap and all the villagers die. So when you're seeing this, like there's loads of the skeletons and bones of everyone in the forest, I thought this was a really clever way of going, like really early on going, this is the premise of the game. This is how this is what you're going to be doing. And also you've been rewarded by going off the beaten path. And that's what we're going to reward you for doing in this game. So I think that was a very concise way of kind of getting what they wanted from the player.
It's interesting. That's the first thing you found, because I was too busy trying to figure out how that guy got ran over by a train.
So you just went straight past it. Did you ever come back to it?
You have to do all of them eventually. You have to do all of them to complete the game.
You have to do every story. There are some things you can skip in this.
You can't skip into stories though, because at the end it shows you the map, and it shows you which ones you missed.
Yeah.
But
I didn't find the first one I found was the astronaut one. That was the one. So like I actually went back because I was like, it was bothering me that I never solved the mystery of the dead guy in the tracks. So I actually went back and I was looking everywhere and I accidentally found the astronaut. And that's the first one first story I found.
I missed the astronaut. I had to go back and do it at the end of the game. But you were talking, Jamie, about how the game sort of sets itself up, and I agree with you. I think it does it really well, and it didn't really start to click with me, because the traps, I was like, okay, there are traps, so I'm not supposed to die. Am I not supposed to die here? Am I triggering all these traps? And then the next one I did was the house with all the rooms, and we can talk about that if you guys want to talk about that. But after I did that, I was kind of like, okay, so I'm going through, and every hot spot, as it were, has a different puzzle I need to solve or a different challenge. And the rules are kind of, apart from maybe a couple where you're finding stuff and putting them in the right spots, for the most part, every challenge is unique, and you kind of just have to pay attention, because the design itself in the environment will clue you in as to what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But they just kind of, oh, well, this is the setup, but they never tell you that because they don't hold your hand.
I think, yeah, I mean, on that, there seem to be two major types of puzzles. That's one where you are recreating a scene of something that's happened in Ethan's life. So something very specific to what's actually been going on with Ethan. And there's this secondary type of puzzle, which seems to be centered around these sort of stories that someone has written. We find out Ethan has written. And they're a bit more fantastical, and they tend to deviate a bit more from the other ones about how you solve them, which confused me at first, because the first thing they show you is not the main thing you're going to be doing, which is recreating these scenes, the Ethan story things. They show you one of the stories, and then they show you one of Ethan's themes for the rail car. This is how far I got with the rail car, until I had to put that rail car over the beaten grass. So you can piece together all these things, and then you've got to put the rail car over the deadened grass to recreate the scene. Did anyone get that bit? Am I an idiot?
Like I said, I think I figured out a lot of this rail car. The last thing I didn't figure out was where to put the rock. So I just went on. I went on and did other things, and then I came back towards like halfway through the game. I actually walked back to figure out what to do with the corpse, because I think I found like the second corpse, or the second main thing to do. I was like, okay, so there's more to this. What am I missing? So I slotted my way all the way back to the beginning of the game to figure out what I was supposed to do there. And that's when I found the astronaut. So yeah, I backtracked there.
Okay.
Because I skipped it too, because I didn't know. I thought it was something else that would come together later on.
So there was one puzzle that I didn't get, and I didn't need to do it at the end of the game. And when I looked at the map, it didn't pop up. And I think that was it, because there was also one. There's a list of trophies. I don't know if you guys played it on PlayStation or not. There's a list of trophies, and there was one of those related trophies that I didn't get. So I'm assuming that was the one that I glossed over.
I think, unless I'm mistaken, I think all of the stories that he's written, you have to hit those bits to get to the end game state. I'm not sure any of the actual recreations of what's going on in his life you actually have to complete. Some of you have to complete literally to get to the next area.
Yeah, I think like the story, like I said, if you miss any of the stories at the very end of the game, you see a chart.
Yeah,
and it brings you to where you have to do them. But I think you can probably skip one or two of the recreations.
Okay,
there's a few that you have to do in order to progress.
I think it's weird that the puzzles you can miss are the ones about Ethan, because that comes into like a huge amount of play later on in the ending. People on the internet are up in arms about this, as they are everything. But they were saying, I think the argument is, this game says, oh, I'm not going to hold your hand, you've got to do it on your own. But then when I got to the end, it told me everything I hadn't done and showed me a map of where I needed to go.
Yeah.
I did feel a bit adrift a lot in this game, particularly because I basically didn't get the first... I don't know, I got the first puzzle, but then I missed the next three because I hadn't finished one thing, or I didn't realise once you've finished everything, you need to go back to the dead body. So I kind of felt like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I don't have enough information, and I feel like I'm wondering a bit too much, just trying to stumble over a piece of evidence. Did you feel like your hand was being held? Did it feel quite clear to you at all times what you want to be doing?
I did some research prior to this episode, and the 2014 version of this game is not the version that we played, essentially. Okay. The game was ported to Unreal Engine 4 in 2015, and with that, it added the destinations at the end of the game on the map. So I'm assuming that whatever that they probably thought, oh, you know what, maybe we should have this so that A, people don't have to backtrack, and B, they don't have to wander around aimlessly. Because if the game is going to demand that you find all of these points of interest, but you don't really know where you're looking, and then you get to the end of and for the most part, the game is very linear. So you're at the end of the line, and then they say, okay, you're at the end of the line, go back through the whole game and try and find what you missed. I would be a little upset. I would feel a little jaded at that point, because it would be a huge pace breaker, and it would be not that fun, in my opinion.
I just thought it was strange that learning now that you can skip the main, his like Jamie said, the main story beats of his life, but you have to find it, but you can't skip the stories. I thought it would be like the other way around. Like finding those stories would give you a reason to go back and replay the game. And the required things would be finding what happens to his family members. But that's just me. I'm not a big time game designer, so what do I know?
I think, I think it's probably worth noting that you are in first person as you're doing this, and you're narrating the story as you go, sort of saying you're kind of here to find out what's happening with Ethan Carter and just sort of unravel this mystery. I think probably the next puzzle that's kind of worth discussing is the fake interiors, the House of 1,000 Doors. Quite a sort of a simple but perplexing premise at first. So you go into this house, you pick up a note, and then a door sort of gets a blue orb area around it. And as you go through that door, you teleport to the room that it's sort of having a vision of, and you can switch between 3 different visions. So as you go through a door, you can decide, are you going to go into one of 3 different rooms? And if you're correct, it will allow you to continue forward and recreate the whole house. And if you're wrong, it will take you back and go, that's not the room you should have gone into. That's not the room that leads on from the room you're already in.
Now, doesn't it give you like 2, 3? I think it gives you like 2 chances.
You get 1 error, and then if you get it wrong again, you have to start over.
Yeah. I looked this up. I looked some of it up. I'm saying that.
I mean, story-wise, it was I think in one of the story beats, you read something and it's Ethan talking about his like neighbor's house, and you go to his neighbor's house, and you're basically recreating Ethan's house.
Yep.
To find like a secret room or whatever.
Yes, the house across the road is a mirror image of this house. Did you guys get that like on your own using your brains?
It took me a few tries. I have like a little map I ended up making kind of.
Because I think even after I found that out, that was still really like just a very lengthy and overcomplicated memory test. And what I did was actually match the interiors, the exterior walls of each room to find my way through this house rather than like memorize another house. Yeah,
I figured it out eventually. I mean, after a while, I figured out like the pattern, but it took me a few tries. Probably took me like, I want to say good maybe 10, 15 minutes. It took me a minute. It took me a little bit. No, but I just kind of at a certain point, I just started taking notes on which doors were what. So kind of like a little mini map on my binder right now. But otherwise, it was slightly annoying. But I got through it.
I got through it by starting at the top floor. Well, it took me a minute to figure out what exactly was happening and what I was supposed to do. But once I kind of had a guess, I started at the top because I'm like, I know for a fact that the attic would be at the top. So you start there, you come down, and you can kind of make out the interior walls of the second floor. So I started to do that, and once I had that down, then I could go down, try and make out the bottom floor. So it was quite a bit of trial and error, but it was actually pretty satisfying once I got the hang of it.
Yeah, I did the reverse. I started on the first floor and worked my way up. The first floor I think was the hardest. The second floor is when I started figuring out, I would see a corner of the wall. I'm like, in a window, I'm like, okay, that would be facing this way. Like,
yeah, so the other thing is, once you guess a room correctly, the image of that room, when it shows up at another door, will be grayed out, so that you know for a fact you already used it. So by starting at the top floor, and I was like, well, I know which one's up there. I know the attic is up there. So I could start eliminating possibilities so that when I was going to the other ones, I'm like, oh, well, I already used this one, I already used this one, I already used this one.
I didn't catch that.
That's the sort of great mind of a man who's completed most of the Kirby games, yeah.
I have a degree, I went to college.
By this point, so that's another story that Ethan's written about this magician who had created a potion to look into the future, and the villagers wanted this potion and he didn't want to share it. So they burnt his house down. It's quite a bleak story, and he'd hidden it in this sort of labyrinth of rooms using magic. And they just expected him to come out, and he never did. At this point, we've had like 1 or 2 kind of weird, bleak stories. A trippy one with a spaceman. I don't know if everyone played the space. Oh, you have to play the spaceman, don't you?
You have to do the spaceman.
And this sort of weird murder where Ethan's granddad stops Ethan's brother, I think, from killing him by Ethan's granddad just smashing Ethan's brother over the head with a rock.
That was the train car.
Yeah. So that's the only story beat we've had from Ethan at this point. I appreciated the sort of, I don't know, it feels like the developers had quite a sort of literary references for this game, and were trying to lean into like short, weird fiction story writing with all these sort of puzzles, and I quite
They're just
enjoyed
short
that.
stories.
Yeah. I do think the game is quite good at making, and like a lot of walking sims, making you feel quite alone as you're going through this experience. You are slightly on edge, even though it's quite a beautiful atmosphere. You are slightly on edge and quite uneasy with what is going on around you at this point. I mean, is that shared, or were you guys cracking up pina coladas going?
No, that's pretty standard. It does really well at isolation, but I don't think I ever thought about it too much, just because the focus of the game isn't necessarily around isolation. So I never really took a moment to think about, oh my gosh, I'm alone. At one point, if the game were horror, then I probably would have thought about it a lot more. But the game as is, I didn't really think about it too much. But looking back on it, yeah, I agree. There was a pretty decent sense of isolation, and a lot of the times you're just walking through and you're hearing the sounds of the trees or the birds, or
yes, and the sound design's fantastic.
It sells going through this sort of forested area, but
yeah,
that's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Joshua. I didn't really think about the isolation, but I did think that the environments and the overall little world they built was very realized. It was well put together. There was even a little shortcut that you didn't really need to use, like with the little elevator. So a lot of the game was like, how do I get down onto the little beach area, or not the beach, the waterway, the dam. So I thought everything was well put together. It kind of got lost, but once I realized the layout, I didn't have a problem navigating or anything like that. So, but as for isolation, I didn't really cross my mind, because I figured he was by himself because he was trying to find this missing child, and I didn't really expect there to be a bunch of any kind of interaction of human beings or anything like that.
Yeah, I think walking sims you're often on your own. But I mean, Joshua, you say like you don't think it's sort of focused on isolation as like a part of the game. I would probably argue that it is like quite a big theme, in the way that you kind of get this feeling towards the end game, and we'll talk about it obviously, but Ethan feels quite isolated as he's sort of going along his natural environment, his neighborhood, writing his stories, maybe not feeling like appreciated.
Sure.
But I mean, nonetheless, the next Ethan Carter story is The Graveyard Murders. This one I did get. This is like so this one basically ends up being his mum trying to lock Ethan Carter, like cement him into this burial basement, for lack of a better word. And you were starting to get this theme of like the sleeper must not sleep. You're starting to get sort of paranormal things going on with this idea of the sleeper, like maybe being a curse or like a demon, that sort of a spirit or something. You're not quite sure at this point, but you know that his mum is trying to lock him away because of this thing called the sleeper. So the next one is the murder in the mines. You have to do the graveyard murders to find out that there's an entrance to the mines, which you kind of see at least midway through the game. And that's probably where I'm going to have to end up at some point. You don't have the key to it, and you get the hint that there is a side tunnel next to the mines. I think one of my failing with this game the most is that either I'm like not very perceptive at all, but I would get very close to these things and the white text would come up sort of showing you can interact with this thing. And a lot of times I just went past it because I didn't actually see it register. I couldn't find the entrance for this mine for fucking love nor money, not even though I knew what I needed to do. Is that me? Am I blind? Is my TV too small? Are you guys missing these prompts?
No, I didn't miss any of the prompts.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very big on exploring. So I noticed when I was doing my first walk around, I noticed the gate. And I was like, how do you get through this gate? And then you eventually get the key, so I knew exactly where to go. So I didn't have an issue at all, really.
I'm very big on reading, so any chance I get to read, I take it.
This is the right game. I think it was literally that I wasn't seeing it, and maybe sometimes that white text was blending into the background, or I mean, maybe I'm just not that perspective. I did have like a slight crisis of conscience playing halfway through this game going, am I not very good at games?
Maybe you're not, Jamie.
Maybe I'm not. One of my 2 platinums is Crash Bandicoot 1, and that's
actually that's not a bad platinum at all. Mad respect.
But there's not a lot of reading there.
Yeah, I can't play it. I need more reading and more cutscenes.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on the sound. Like, it's generally the soundtrack is like orchestral.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite calming. It's like kind of the opposite of that eerie feeling I was getting for most of these stories. It was quite like saying, "Oh, everything's okay," and you're just having a little nice walk through the forest. And I thought the sound design was really good, as you said. Like Joshua, like the sounds of the birds and the trees does make this game feel more polished than it should do.
The ambient noises help really sell the area for sure.
And then you go into the mines and all of that stops. And then you just get the hollow, dark sound. All the music cuts out. Mm-hmm. And I was a little bit pissing my pants at this point. Because I didn't realise there was going to be like any scary moments in this game whatsoever. You go down what feels like about 5 minutes of stairs. And I'm sure that's intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I almost thought that it was looping.
Yes.
So I remember I actually went backwards for a little bit thinking it was like a trick puzzle. Like it was just trying to trick you into...
Like in Max Payne with the crying baby.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Thanks, Tony. Still think about that baby.
Every time I went down a flight of these stairs, I was like, fuck my life. Because I knew not good things live down those stairs, bad things live down those stairs. I think probably you two have a slightly higher tolerance for horror in games.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call that moment in Ethan Carter like scary. It definitely caught me off guard, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is horrifying. It was just, I mean, it just happens. Like, oh, that's a thing. So I just have to deal with that. And it became less of a, I'm scared, and more of a, oh, I have to watch out for that now and finish this little maze section.
Or would someone like to describe what that was? So once you get to the bottom of these stairs, you're met with a warning saying, fuck off. If you're reading this, everything's gone really badly.
Yeah, they say, turn around, don't go in here. And gamer logic, gotta go in there. So I go in, and you get these little maps at various intervals that tell you where you are in relation to the place around you. Very generous, by the way. And
a small labyrinth.
Yeah, and so you find these like dead bodies, and then you interact with them, and they have this little light spirit that shoots around, and so you follow it, and you might find some more along the way. But there are also these creatures, these like Homo sapien creature zombie things, and they're like, they just kind of grunt and roar at you, and they'll chase you, and oh no, and then you get thrown to the start of the maze, and so you go back in and do it. So more of an inconvenience than anything, but once you...
Shitting myself.
More of an inconvenience to everyone not named Jamie. So you go through, and you find more of these skeletons or corpses, and I'll kind of go through my experience a bit. So I found some, I followed the light to the center, and you see on the map that there's this like big open area, so you kind of get a clue where, oh, I should go there. So you go there, and you go up this like little spire, and at the top there are the ghosts of these corpses you find, and they're standing on various symbols, and there's like this whole grid of symbols, and they're standing on particular ones. And then you, at the top of the spire as well, you look ahead of you, and you see this big door, and the door has, I think it was 6 layers, where each layer has a symbol and like a shape, and then it has they all have the same symbols that you can cycle through, so you just have to essentially figure out the combination.
It felt very Uncharted in its puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. It did feel like Uncharted.
I think I found maybe one of the spirits beforehand, then went up there, and I think you get like, there's like a letter or something that gives you a hint of what 2 of the symbols are, and then I saw the spirit standing there, and I'm like, okay, I guess I have to find more. So I found them, I went up, and I solved it. You know, it wasn't that complicated.
Yeah, they give you one, at that area, and they give you one near the start. So by the time you get to the top, you have more than one. You're kind of clued in. Oh, there's probably more.
Yeah. I think it was well designed, You could, even if you didn't find out the spirits, you could probably have solved it just, just by eliminating, process of elimination. So I thought it was well designed, It wasn't anything too convoluted. And, it's probably one of the, I like the whole, Joshua was mentioning it, the whole Lovecraftian vibe they had going down there.
And especially once you get the solution to that puzzle, they really go all in on the H.P. Lovecraft inspiration. And then that was the part where I was like, okay, I'm Tony now. I don't know what's going on. It's like poor Jamie's probably like peeing in his chair at the moment. He saw the rat in Crash Bandicoot and jumped out of his seat.
Look, I don't play horror games. I think that's a trope that's fair to say by now.
And in the past couple of months, I've been trying to fix that, but he doesn't want to.
Don't like jump scares. I mean, horror films, I'm not as bad with, but I think something about a game, like, you can't close your eyes and, like, hide behind it. Is this the scariest thing that's ever happened? No. Is it a big jump scare in your face that goes, bleh, when you're not expecting it? Yes, it is. And the way the mechanics are, so the first time I went through this thing, I'm just going, please don't let there be anything. It's really close quarters. Also, you've not met another living soul that you can interact with in this game so far. It's unprecedented that anyone might just jump out at any point. The way the mechanics of this sort of sea man weird urchin thing that has like been left to rot there works is he will randomly, I had to find out what the mechanics were because I was too scared. I needed to know what was going on. He will randomly spawn throughout the puzzle. It's complete RNG where he will turn up. When he does, you get two things. You get a flash of light and then you get a sound. They may not always correspond. I think the flash of light doesn't always correspond to where he's going to be, which like completely disorientated me. But the first time I was just going through this thing going, please don't let there be anyone. Please don't let there be anyone. It's really narrow. You're really pushed into a very tight space when you're going through these caves. And then you get the flash, pissing my pants. You get the sound, crying to my girlfriend. And then I see him, but he's just standing there like some Slender Man bullshit, just like, I am going to fuck you up. And I just ran towards him in this weird, like, unevolutionary response. I just ran towards him. And what
Natural selection does not favor Jamie.
It really doesn't. And what he does is, once he appears, if you just run away and you don't look at him, then he will despawn. So that's all you have to do. I hated it.
I stared at him. I stared right at him.
I saw the guy once.
I saw him once.
If you stare at him long enough, he respawns right next to you and goes on your face. Did you get that?
Yeah.
It was awful.
So the first time I saw him, I'm going through, and like you said, Jamie, there's no other living things in the game, so you want to go up to it for sure. So I'm like, oh, that's the thing. I'm going to stare at him. So I just kind of stand there, and he turns, and then he just... I'm like, oh, so don't do that. Got it. Good.
It was a
lesson,
big don't do that.
Lesson learned.
With me, I was just kind of... I just walked in. You don't really know what's going on when you first walk in there. I didn't really know what was going on. Famously, I guess it's not cool for this episode. But I just went in there and I just got there and I turned and I actually bumped into him. He sent me back to the beginning, like right when I walked in.
Bumped into him as if you exchanged business cards and had to go in for a coffee.
Yeah, like we exchanged business. We exchanged.
He runs
business
at you.
Cards,
Runs at you and he says, "Do you want to join my Minecraft server?" He's like in your face. "You want to join my Minecraft server?"
No, it's more like the business card scene in American Psycho.
Oh my god. Raised font.
Oh, that's such a fantastic movie. Anyway, but yeah, so I accidentally bumped into him, not realizing what was going on, and I flashed back like 2 steps backwards. I'm like, okay, I guess this is a thing, and then I never saw him ever again.
Yeah, he doesn't spawn that often. Some people said they went through that whole puzzle without having to see him.
Well, apparently he just liked you, Jamie, because you said he was everywhere.
I saw him thrice. I just think like as soon as you get in the mine, the music stops. It goes for this low, like kind of echoey tones. It's going, something's going to happen. Then you go down a lift, not good, isolated. you see this murder, you're kind of primed to just be like, something horrible is going to happen here, and it does, and I would have preferred not to have it. Having said that, the juxtaposition of that is once you finish that, and you don't actually have to complete that, and I did it for the podcast, I was like, I found out you don't have to do that bit at all. You can just completely skip it. And I was like, no, I'm a big boy. I'm doing an episode. I'm going to do it. But the juxtaposition is when you finally do that, you can go up the stairs again and you leave this cave. And I felt like I was being reborn because the nice music comes back, the bird sounds come back, and the light comes back, and it just, you come straight back in to what is going to be basically the end game. At this point, I'm basically baffled about the story the whole way through. I know there's something about sleepers. I know everyone's trying to kill Ethan, except for pretty much his father. I think it doesn't help that the rail cart puzzle is basically the last thing sequentially that happens in the story.
Yeah.
So not only are you getting these very vague stories, you're getting them out of order, and it just generates no sort of empathy. Like, my cat died this week. So I'm
Really?
yes, you
won't ever tell us these things.
I don't like to be hyperbolic, but
That's
it's maybe the
awful.
saddest thing that's ever happened. It was really
That's
bad.
awful. You didn't tell us.
Jamie,
You didn't tell us it was your birthday a few weeks ago, and you didn't tell us that your cat died.
If my cat died, Jamie, I would be devastated.
I like.
If my cat died, if my dog died, you guys would sure as fuck know my dog died, because I would be a complete wreck.
I would be devastated.
She was 19, but she was maybe the best thing that's ever graced this earth.
Holy.
Yeah, she was real old, but that didn't make it any easier. My point is, I'm quite prone to being sensitive around death at the moment, and that this game has not elicited one sort of emotion. I know it was going for weird sci-fi, weird fiction vibe, short story theme, but a lot of this is, in a way, at least depicting death, and none of that is like affecting me, because I'm just half baffled the whole time. I know there's something going on with sleepers. I know that Ethan's kind of uncovered this room, and it's kind of awoken this sort of sleeper thing, and what the sleeper wants is like death. It thrives on death. The brother says before trying to kill his father, is like, the sleeper chose my mother and the sleeper's chosen me, and we're just fulfilling its purpose.
Yeah, the chronology is kind of hard to put together with that one, especially.
Yeah.
Especially considering you get to the end and you do some little exploring, you go through a couple areas, you find out a little bit more. You get to the end and you get to their house, and you get this backstory about Ethan is there with his grandfather, and they're chatting a little bit, like, we need to open this big door, this is where it is. So they open it, Ethan goes in, he's like, I'm gonna burn this whole place to the ground. Ethan goes in, the grandpa shuts it, and Ethan's like, stay back, grandpa, I'm gonna burn it down. And the grandpa's like, there's nothing we can do anymore, we all have to die. So fire, grandpa dies, and you find the grandpa's body in a fetal position, and he's
accepted this weird demon thing.
He has accepted.
You have to die. Everyone has to die.
Yeah,
and the place burns down, and then it goes on to the first bit of the game that you actually think, this is actually probably happening, and they replay the scene of actually how the house did actually burn down.
Yeah, so you get this scene of Ethan in this secret basement room, or this room where he goes to be by himself, and he's scribbling his stories drawn on the wall, and his family kind of comes down one by one. Oh, Ethan's in here, and they all go in, like the brother, the dad, the grandpa, the uncle, like
the brother finds him.
The brother finds him, and then everybody comes down, and they're all just being awful to Ethan. They're like,
yes,
why do you have to come down here and write stories? That's terrible. You're so weird. And
yeah, everyone's piling on Ethan.
The game really goes into, Ethan's life sucks, and this is awful.
And he's escaping through these stories.
Yeah,
that he's writing.
And that's sort of his outlet. He's writing these stories.
Stories where his family gets brutally murdered.
All authors, all good stories are born through suffering. I'm just going to go on a tangent and say that.
Except for Kirby?
Well, Kirby lore.
Okay.
Anyway, so you get a lot of that. You get the family, how they're interacting with Ethan. It's genuinely awful. And then there's the mother. The mother, I can't remember if she takes a paper or she does something.
She's got a lantern and
she does something and she knocks the lantern over and it like starts to set everything ablaze and everyone's like, okay, get out. And they get out, but Ethan tries to get out last, but by the time he gets there, the fire is too big, so he can't get out, so he shuts the door and is trapped by himself, and then you're there as the detective Paul Prospero, the character you play as, and he's like, oh, and Ethan's like, oh, you're here, you made it. You're the character that I wrote about in one of my stories.
I felt like this was probably the most emotionally impactful moment. That bit where Ethan's like, so I can let go now? The story's finished? And he goes, yeah, you can let go now, Ethan. And then I think Ethan asks what's next, and you say, what else? Another story.
Yeah.
And then it zooms out, and it zooms through the house, and you can see like a freeze frame of this quite impressive like fire, and his family like rushing to try and save Ethan, and like one of them's on fire, and someone's trying to set him out. So obviously he's trying to sort of stop this carnage that's happening. So there's two big things that have happened right at the end of this. We have a twist, and we have an ambiguous ending. I mean, first of all, the twist. Anyone see this one coming?
I kind of saw it ahead of time because you had a lot of these short stories and Ethan's writing these, so I'm thinking, okay, so you're kind of experiencing a lot of this stuff, and the premise of the game, with the sleeper and all that, you never see it. You never get a lot of, apart from like the tentacles or whatever, you don't really get a lot of it indirect, and you're never directly in conflict with something like that. You're just kind of trying to piece together what happens. So I'm like, this could be another story because you had a lot of these supernatural words and elements with some of the puzzles. But for the most part, when you're out in the world, it's just, you have this real world, this very detailed, real looking forest, and then you have these weird supernatural things, but there was always something about them that didn't feel right because they never lasted long. And it always felt kind of like a dream, essentially. Because even when you see the tentacles, you go through, you see those, you're underwater, and then the game just, bam, you go right back to whatever the hell you're doing.
The revelation here is that the family weren't all trying to kill him. This idea of the sleeper was all kind of made up. These were his stories as well. And you're kind of led to believe that this is like actually what happened. And it's only at this end scene you realise, although his family's been horrible to him, actually he's written all these stories that you've been recreating about them trying to kill him.
I was kind of with Joshua. By the time when I did a few of the stories, by the time I found the astronaut one, I was like, okay, is what the character we're playing as a part of a story too. So very early on, maybe halfway through the game, I kind of put it together. I didn't put the rest of it together. I thought maybe I didn't really put two and two together in a sense, but I figured that maybe the character was created by Ethan for whatever reason, or like a story he was writing for whatever reason. I didn't really realize the ending. I didn't really see the twist at the end where he was this dying kid that just made one last story. I didn't really see that coming, but I had a feeling that it was something else was going on.
Yeah, it probably should be worth noting that the character you are, what was his name again? Paul
Prospero.
Paul Prospero is who you are playing as through the story, trying to unravel this mystery of Ethan Carter. But they do tell you that he is one of the characters Ethan Carter has created as a sort of paranormal detectorist. Detective. The second thing is they've left the opening slightly ambiguous for you to decide kind of what's this all been about. Now, Joshua, you said you had You had thoughts on your interpretation of what the game was going for.
Yeah, so to me, I think it's, upon thinking about it, I think it's pretty evident that the game is essentially Ethan, sort of in a way, like Ethan's life flashing before his eyes, with a lot of the stories that he's left behind. And it's about him coming to terms with the fact that he's dying. And you get to the end and they say, write another story. Can I let go? That's very provocative verbiage. And then the thing that really sealed the deal for me was the trophy list on PS4. There are 5 of those trophies are each named after the 5 stages of grief. So you have a denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they're not only that, but the trophies are also grouped right next to each other, so you very clearly see them in order. So I'm under the impression that the game is, Ethan is dying. He's sort of having these thoughts at the end of his life as he's about to die, and then, once the detective, his fictional character, gets there, sort of when, okay, well, the story's done, now what? Just write a new one.
That nearly connotes to me, I didn't realise that about the 5 stages of grief, that nearly connotes to me that maybe this isn't Ethan's experience, or some of it isn't Ethan's experience, but maybe it's actually from his family who only have these stories left of him. I don't know, like...
Yeah, it could be something like that too.
Maybe you do grieve your own death?
Because I'm thinking, at the end of the game, you have this talk with Ethan specifically, and when you're dealing with death, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you have these moments where your life flashes before your eyes, or you get very retrospective," and so Ethan could be thinking about his stories, or he's thinking about this character, Paul Prospero. If a creative little kid who makes this character, he's in a bad situation, he can't rely on his family. He's thinking, maybe this character that I made, he'll come and save me. He'll know what to do. If only he were here.
2 things really back that up. One of the things Ethan's worried about when he's having this conversation with you is he's saying, I haven't finished your story. And you say, oh no, my story's finished and it's a great one. And also the family say, get out of the room. The smoke is toxic, which is kind of priming you to think you could go into a sort of delusional state or sort of see visions. Tony, is that how you interpreted the ending?
Yeah, he's totally dead.
No one was worrying about that.
Don't sugarcoat anything, Tony.
Surprise, he's alive.
I just think it's kind of funny that his dying thoughts, he was thinking of his family dying in such terrible ways. So
well, that's it as well. That's quite a dark way that he sort of depicted his whole family.
It feels like the only one that tried protecting him was his grandfather, because throughout the story, his grandfather was the only one that was like, "Yo, don't do this. Leave him alone." And maybe his father too, maybe his father has some regrets, but it definitely felt like his grandfather was the one that was protecting him.
I didn't think this was an ambiguous ending, because we've all came to sort of the same conclusions. It's the last moments of Ethan's dying, of Ethan dying, and this is how he is processing that. I don't know if either of you went onto the Astronauts website.
I did, yeah.
The person who wrote this, who is it? It was Tom Basil. I'll probably get that wrong, but he said that the game ending is actually supposed to be ambiguous, and their sort of how they think the game ends actually hasn't. They're not going to tell us, and he said that probably people didn't think it was too ambiguous because there was a twist at the end, and usually if there's a twist, then you're given the sort of answer. But actually, they're not going to tell us their interpretation of the game. And their sort of reasoning for that was, do you know, sometimes when you listen to music and you misinterpret a lyric, but that becomes your sort of version of the song and you have your own emotional attachment to it. And if you find out later down the line it's not that, it's quite upsetting and it cuts your reality of what it wants. So in that way, they were like, we want the consumer of this media to have their own interpretation of what the story is. And actually, there are still plot beats and stuff about the family in this game that are hiding in plain daylight that no one seems to have uncovered yet, and nothing that they've seen in reviews. So I think their their true version of what happens in this game probably isn't that straightforward. We're led to believe it's that, but actually I think they were upset that people didn't think it was an ambiguous ending. So it might not be as simple as we think. But equally, if it's that opaque, what's the point?
I've seen one interpretation where, for whatever reason, the posters said that they think that the detective is Ethan Carter grown up and he's revisiting his old town. But that's just most of it. I've never seen anything more than that, really. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me. And if the true interpretation is that convoluted, then, you know, it seems more like a writing and game design problem than the players.
I mean, it may be, and they do kind of take on some of that acceptance. The other detail I did see is that it's 7 o'clock when he dies, and they really kind of make a point of showing you that, and I wonder if that is something. If anyone has any ideas, write in, tweet us. So I think with that said, though, as confused as we're all feeling, it's time for our final thoughts and review. Tony, would you like to give us a score in your concluding thoughts?
I mean, there are certain things I liked about it. You know, I like the environments, the music. I did like the adventure aspects of it. I liked I liked how you had to put together the clues of the deaths and everything. I really liked that. That was really good. I like the adventure game mechanics of it. And, you know, it'd be cool if they did do a follow-up, if they use similar mechanics to a more... If they decide to do another adventure game of this style, I would another detective game, let's say, for instance. I would like them to use the mechanics and maybe have more interactions with other things. You know, not as straightforward, like maybe linear, but not like too linear like this is. It'd be a cool mechanic for a different game in the style, like another game in the style. As for everything else, I mean, overall, I give it like maybe like a 6 or a 7. I didn't think that too highly of the story. It was okay, you know, but...
You've, by the way, I mean, and listeners at home can't see this, but Tony has the most mildly underwhelmed face as he's talking about this game. It's just petering on from whelmed to underwhelmed.
It wasn't, you know, it was fine. I like the way, it was fine. It was okay. I give it like if you want like a short adventure game, maybe, but, you know, I'm not going to run out and recommend this to people too much. You know, like I said, atmosphere, music, the game mechanics, the detective mechanics are cool, you know, otherwise, you know, it's about average, I would say.
My thoughts aren't too dissimilar from Tony's. The environments were great. The atmosphere was great. I quite liked how the game was structured, where you just kind of go and you just figure things out. The game never stops to tell you really anything, and I appreciate that kind of design quite a bit. The story I wasn't super invested in. The characters I wasn't very invested in. And I know we talked about this while we were playing it, but the game just, like, you play it and then it's over. And I almost feel like the game isn't long enough that you really that you can really get a feel for it. I almost feel that it's too short. What it does do, I think it does pretty well. But like Tony said, it's not a game that I would go recommending to people. And it's not a game I probably won't really think about it that much after it's done. 6 or 7, I'd have to go with probably I'm leaning toward a 7 out of 10.
I think you've hit upon something for me, Joshua, which is I didn't think about this game afterwards. And I think that's kind of what this game was going for, to be one of those games. As I said before, I played What Remains of Edith Finch, and that has quite a similar, there's loads of parallels and it's quite similar, but as soon as I finished that game, I was very excited to sort of think about it and see what other people had thought about it. And it stayed with me for like weeks and weeks and weeks. I just thought about it the whole time. And I think this game was going for that and missed, because it's loads of little individual good ideas and it hasn't come together as a whole piece. And as for the ambiguous ending thing, I mean, like, I don't know if you've played Inside. Inside has like a really ambiguous ending. But you feel
Okay,
like
fine.
there's a definitive answer that they have in mind, and that's quite, that they strongly do have that, and they're just going to hint at it.
I thought
particularly with,
about
like,
Inside a lot after I played it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like here, if they do have a true version of what happened, what they've actually maybe accidentally done is just give you a twist, which makes you feel like you know the true answer and don't want to investigate that anymore, or don't feel the need to, because it's either so opaque or so irrelevant, because you've not had the emotional pull to this game. I think I am going to probably, I don't know. I think the good things about it were the graphics, the music, and just the general feeling of the game.
I think the structure, the way the game is structured for an indie team, for a game to look as good as it does, especially when it came out, and for the game to be competently made as much as it is, despite some of its flaws. It's like, to me, 6 just felt a bit too low with those in mind. Yeah.
And I did enjoy, I think the highlight probably was the short stories that weren't related to Ethan Carter. I mean, seeing here, it could be a 6 or a 7, couldn't it? I mean, both of you are right in your own respects. I think I would probably give it a 7. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Dear
it has
Lord.
A little something for everyone.
It does. Or it has that bit in the mines, which I wasn't okay with.
All right, guys. Well, apparently that's the end of this episode of our discussion of...
Or is it? You don't
what?
know. Sorry, that's my joke. My attempt at humor.
Is this one of Jamie's stories, convoluted stories, that he would be pretentious and say that's not the true ending? Who knows? Maybe we'll find out next episode, where we discuss Mirror's Edge. In the meantime, why not check us out on our social media, Twitter, at PS Rumble, and drop us an email if your questions, comments, complaints at PlayStation Rumble Podcast at gmail.com. And also be sure to check us out on YouTube, where we also post our past episodes up there for you to re-listen to and share with your friends. And be sure to like and subscribe. And with that, just want to say good night, good morning, good evening. Have a good day.
See you guys.
Goodbye. Gentlemen, it's been a couple of weeks since we last met. How have your weeks been?
I guess I'll go.
Don't all rush at once.
Yeah, go for it, Tony. Go for it.
This is why we can't do a live show.